Kelly, right? Nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Also here we have one of the new interns, Ashley. She's just going to be shadowing the interview.
Okay. Sounds fine. Sounds fine.
Well, all right. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Alpha Art Gallery's Meet the Artist series. I'm Kelly Rodriguez, a curatorial intern at the gallery, and I'm excited to have here with me Joanne Ross, who will be exhibiting her art at our photography exhibition. Just to start, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm okay, and I'm glad that the snow here in New Jersey is lifting
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, slowly melting.
The weather has been crazy.
Very, very crazy. Yes.
Um, to start, what inspired you to pursue photography?
Well, I took my first class of photography when I was in college, and I really loved it. But then, kind of didn't had it always in the back burner of my mind of wanting to pursue it more. And but at the time was in art education, became an art educator. And one day in my classroom, which was outside of Rochester, I had invited an art educator from the George Eastman House Museum to visit my classroom to demonstrate zoetropes. And in the process of demonstrating the zoetrope to my students who were ages K through 3, that was a very young group, um, I kind of became intrigued again with photography. And so he said, "You listen, you really should take a look at this place called Visual Studies Workshop, maybe take some classes there." And I ended up doing that, and ultimately, a year later, applied to their grad school and put my education pursuits on hold for a while.
What does the process of making art look like to you?
Okay, it's an interesting process. I think I love my process, and I came to it over many years through different um, turns in the road. But essentially, what I do is I love the idea of street photography. So, in a sense, I come at the environment as if I'm doing street photography and street work, except that instead of photographing people, I'm photographing plants. And so I go out into the field, with a very clear destination of a river point. And I have photographed many rivers with this project. And the area I'm shooting is the shorelines of rivers, and they're also known as riparian zones, so as not to be mixed up with a beach. It's really a very, very narrow strip where plants survive, but it's very temporal, a lot of upheavals, and a lot of things going on. A lot of debris can be left. I mean, it reflects climate in at all times of the year in many different situations. And so I photograph. And when I had started that, I'm probably going to combine, Kelly, a bunch of your questions all together,
Go right ahead.
you know. But when I started shooting this project, I was doing that. I wasn't doing riparian yet, but I was definitely shooting street type of images in my neighborhood, in my suburban neighborhood, which was okay, but it wasn't really, wasn't the climate as much. And so, in any case, one day I was up in the country and I went down to the river where I always photograph, and I couldn't get down there because the whole shoreline was blocked by a non-native plant, which was the knotweed plant. And it got me started on the riparian projects, and I was shooting those uh, areas where this plant was basically taking over. And then at the same time, so this is all the process of doing field work. And so at the same time, I would bring the images back to my studio, and I would essentially retouch them. I didn't do much alteration in terms of, really changing what I photographed. But the alteration took place in how I broke an image up, how I worked with panels, and did different tonalities, and trying to keep in mind an essential question about the environment. And at that point in time, my essential question was really around how do we deal with, a non-native plant when it's really difficult to get rid of. Um, and I still don't know the answer to that question. I mean, with this particular plant, um, if you want to try to control it in your backyard, you have to cover without pesticides. You have to cover everything up with plastic for 4 years. It's very, very difficult. And then I looked around the Delaware River and saw, oh my God, what a daunting project. This is like impossible. And then I started to think about that maybe this plant is really where we're going, and this is here to stay, and that's something to pay attention to. In any case, back to the work that I'm showing at Alfa Gallery, which is from a series called Dissonant Ground. And again, to answer your question, same process going on and shooting, but the difference is that between my early projects and now, I started to use the camera in an aerial fashion, just looking down, no horizon, so that people would approach landscape from a different point of view, less from traditional notions of figure ground, or even things that date, back to Hudson River School, but more or less, really focusing in on soil, plants, microbes, changes, and everything was, I was able to capture all of these in various states of degrees, from if there was a flood, I could capture the flooding. I could capture plants survive in the same image, pulling out from the flood, plants that wouldn't survive a flood. And in Dissonant Ground at Alfa, I also started to focus a little bit more on how color and chemicals create changes in our environment. And, what does that look like? And what does beauty look like? Because a lot of these chemicals produce beautiful, beautiful color changes. And anyway, so that kind of answers your question, I think.
It does. You mentioned that you sometimes alter your photographs, but not always. What, like, how do you choose what you alter and what you highlight in your pictures?
Okay. Essentially, what I will do is I will have an important question in my mind of what I'm looking for. And it's a question that, might be difficult to answer. For example, does this image show both beauty and horror in a sublime way? And if it doesn't meet those, points, I don't necessarily feel that it's working. So then my next question might be, is there anything I can do if it's an image I particularly like? Is there anything I can do to enhance what I'm trying to show that I might see, but pull out more? So I might pull out more color, more reds, more tonalities. I might break it up into small pieces and then enlarge it as one large image so that it becomes more mural size. These images work really well if it's mural size and has more of like a field painting as opposed to, as I said earlier, foreground, background type of thing.
On your website, it also mentions that you like to capture ideas such as cultural history and identity. How do you go about capturing such vague and broad ideas?
Not always very well, I think, because, it's such a plant-focused storytelling. But as time has gone on, I realized that there's absolutely no way I can approach any river without knowing the history and culture of the area where I find it. And so a lot of these areas might have had a heavy industrial pollution, like the Passaic River in New Jersey, or the James River in Virginia had more of that, but has been cleaned up quite a bit. And so the way it reflects itself as a body of water that might have pollution in it tends to be more invisible. Um, so in knowing an area, you kind of it's hard to explain totally, but let's say more recently when I was standing on the banks of the James, I couldn't help but think about um, the changes. I was standing there and I'm looking out at the river and I was thinking a lot about, the Native Americans and what it must have been like at that point in time when it was completely their river and there was nobody around to alter that. And as I stood there, there I heard this big noise and this train came across the Trestle Bridge. And I thought, holy moly, there's the industrial, revolution there and some of the trains and the pollution. And then, so you can't really can't escape it. And I think if you don't look at it, you're losing a lot. One is losing a lot. And also in terms of conversation with people who are part of the environment and who, you meet and you can talk to as you're shooting. And that's really always very interesting as well.
Have you noticed you change the way that you take photographs depending on the history of an area?
Um, I wouldn't say that's the case so much because the focus really is on the stories that the plants are telling, and it should be right in there. But it does help me to, how can I put it, consider and maybe find areas along the river that might tell an aspect of that story.
For our final question, what are your future plans in photography? Do you plan on continuing this line of environmental photography, or do you plan on expanding?
Yes, I definitely plan on continuing this project, expanding it to other rivers, as well as repeating the rivers I've already shot because everything is always changing, and also expanding how it's presented. I think size is important to help draw people into the visual aspect of the project and to kind of like, that kind of thing. And I love talking to people about this project and so forth. So, yes, yes.
Uh, Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you coming out to talk to us. And I really look forward to incorporating your art into our gallery.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Have a nice day.
You too.